Hello and welcome, fellow perceivers, to my page, Math Magic and the Secrets of the Multiverse Revealed. It is I, the Mad Mathman himself, returning to expound upon our obscure review of geometry that we saw in Cycle 1. If you have not yet watched Cycle 1, then you, sir or madam, are in the wrong cycle. I strongly urge that you watch each cycle in the sequence I present them, but hey, I can only show you the door. It is you who must turn the knob, open the door, and cross the threshold. In Cycle 1, our themes were dimensional illusion and geometry, the idea of perspective and how it creates different possibilities of shape and dimension, and the connection of pi and gravity. These themes are vastly important moving forward, as is why they were in Cycle 1, so keep these notions in mind. We are about to embark onto the next level of perspective, Cycle 2, fourth dimensional mathematics. Over the last year, I began to notice strange patterns within math and geometry, and thanks to the all-knowing internet gurus such as Google, Wikipedia, Reddit, and beyond, I was never able to find any trace of these patterns ever having been noticed. Well, some of these patterns we shall discuss have been noticed, but the correlations, comparisons, and conclusions in which I will present concerning these patterns are my own original concepts in which I can do more than simply share these patterns, but can give insight as to how and why they are occurring. It's all about perspective, remember? In Cycle 1, we discussed my proposal of higher dimensional illusions within geometry, and I made the claim that the first and the second dimensions are just illusions within a third-dimensional plane, and that the nature of reality is not third-dimensional, but fourth-dimensional. In this cycle, we shall see how not only geometry, but math and arithmetic also use illusions to hide a higher dimensional form of mathematical behavior. Math, as we have all been taught, is concrete and predictable. This number plus this number equals this number. Plug these numbers into this formula, and the formula always works. These predictable behaviors within math are only one form of mathematical behavior, a linear, lower dimensional form. This form of math obeys the basic laws of math as we know them. But math can also behave in a cyclical manner, and this form of behavior is a higher dimensional form and can be abstract. This cyclical form can bend, break, and even seem to rewrite the basic laws of math as we understand them. The multiverse transcends all and therefore has no limits, no boundaries, and sees beyond all illusions. Since math is the language of the multiverse, it too cannot be enslaved by any laws, limits, boundaries, nor illusions. At least that is what the numbers, shapes, angles, and equations told me. Don't shoot the messenger. Just as within geometry, there is dimensional overlap within mathematics, and one of those overlaps is the possibility of both linear and cyclical mathematical behaviors simultaneously occurring in predictable patterns. We can clearly see this within the multiple cycles of 5 and 10. The multiples of 5 and 10 have an easy-to-predict and equate cyclical behavior, but this behavior is still linear as the patterns are always moving in one direction. This is the best example of overlapping mathematical behaviors. The multiples of 5 or 10 are rhythmic and predictable as a cycle, but are linear as they only move one direction and can never break their patterns. Multiples of 5 always end in 5 or 0, and multiples of 10 always end in 0. Fourth dimensional mathematics need a different sort of overlap in which to behave in their higher dimensional form. This higher form is cyclical, and in a cycle, the first point and the last point can be perceived as the same point and therefore are overlapped in sustaining a higher form of cyclical mathematical behavior. Here we see our digits 0 through 9. We start at 0 and count through the 9 digits until we reach 10. But wait, it's not 10, it's still 0. Our understanding of linear math laws gives us our agreed perspective of 10 following 9, but our digits have no symbol for 10 and just repeat the cycle. This is because 0 is a unique digit, the outcast and the rogue. 0 is the digit representation of cyclical forms. We have no need for any digits beyond 10 because 0 acts as a tether between different cycles of the other 9 digits. When we see 10, we are actually seeing one greater cycle. When we see 20, it equals 2 cycles. So 11 reads like 1 cycle in the tens place and 1 count in the ones place. So as we move through the lower cycles of 10-digit counts, we eventually reach 100 or one larger cycle of lower cycles. We can literally use a mere 10 digits to represent any number due to our understanding of the linear and cyclical behaviors of 10's multiple cycles. And so we have 9 digits that bridge each 0 to the next as 0 is a cycle. I mean, what better shape to represent a cycle than a circle? Since 0 is both beginning and end of a cycle, it overlaps and connects to higher cyclical forms by using the other 9 digits to create an illusion of a linear form. 0's higher dimensional influence affects this next pattern of fourth dimensional math, and this pattern we have all seen before, the pattern within multiples of 9. We all remember this pattern from school. As we look at the sequence of multiples of 9, the digits we receive in each product can be added together to cycle back to a sum of 9. There's clear sign of overlap within the digits in the sequence. We start with 1 and 8 like they are at two ends of a line. These digits then seem to converge towards each other until 9 times 5 equals 45, and 5 being the center of a 10 cycle causes an overlap of the digits as they cross and form 54 and 9 times 6, and they continue to move away from each other from there. It's like we see the digits start at either side, and as they shift to their opposite sides, they cross or overlap in the center. These multiples and their digits are also displaying cyclical behavior in the manner in which we can add them together to return to 9. Why is this significant? Because the multiples of 9 and the way that we separate the digits of each product in order to add them together to get a sum of 9 is bending the laws of arithmetic. We shouldn't be able to separate these digits because the digits are coming together to represent a different number. Yet when we do, the pattern always consists and it always works. This is bending the laws of math as we know. As the multiples of 9 are pushed further, we encounter 9 times 10 equals 90. This is 9's first multiple to be multiplied with a number containing 0, or cycle digit, and in fact every number's first encounter with 0 concerning multiplication is always 10. In fourth dimensional mathematics, 9 times 10 equals 90 is conveying that we have completed a cycle, which is the 0 in the 1's place, of 9, which is in the higher 10's place. We have now completed a cycle, and given so, depending on your perspective, the first and the last point can be perceived as the same point, and therefore as if they are overlapping. We will now be able to find evidence of overlapping cycles as we continue. Next is 9 times 11 equals 99, where the 9 in the 10's place represents the completed cycle of 9, and the 9 in the 1's place the first count in the new cycle. We also have a perspective of 9 plus 9 equals 18, and this is an overlapping form of this multiple, which is conveying that the second count has begun, as 18 equals 9 times 2, and 2 is the second count. Then, as we reach 9 times 12 equals 108, we have crossed another type of cycle, meaning 100 or 10 times 10. This crossing will now overlap the patterns due to the overlap of the 100 cycle. The 0 in the 10's place of 108 is representing the overlap of different cycles, as y is literally overlapping the 1 and 8. The 1 and 8 can represent both the second cycle of 9's multiples or the second count in the second cycle. The 0 and 108 overlaps the entire collection of fourth dimensional mathematical patterns due to the overlap of both lower cycles of 9's multiples as well as the overlap of a higher cycle or 100. As we continue, we see that the sequence of following multiples can always be added to give us 9, as they act as counts in the second cycle until we reach 9 times 20 equals 180. The 1 and 8 are 18 in conveying the completion of 9's second cycle represented by 0. And of course, 1 plus 8 equals 9. It would appear as if 9 always needs to be the center of attention as far as its multiples are concerned with fourth dimensional mathematics. 9 acts like gravity in the sense that no matter how far its multiples move away from it, these multiples are still mathematically trapped within 9's gravity. Gravity is the center, so like I said, 9 needs to be the center of attention. Let's keep pushing. With 9 times 21 equals 189, there are again many overlapping patterns and many patterns of overlap. The 1 and 8 can be perceived as conveying the end of the second cycle, and the 9 the first count in a third cycle. We can also add all the digits to receive 18, which can be the end of the second cycle, as well as an illusional second count in the third cycle, since this is technically the first count. And 9 times 22 equals 198, we have a 9 in the 10's place, which overlaps the 1 and 8, conveying an overlap of 9 cycles. The 1 and 8 again are the second cycle or the second count. We can add all digits to get 18 as well, but if we perceive the 1 and 8 as 18, we can add 18 in the overlapping 9 to get 27, a feigned third count over the second count of the third cycle. With 9 times 23 equals 207, the 0 in the 10's place is overlapping of the end of the second cycle and the beginning of the third. We can add the 2 and 7 to get a count of 9, but the 2 and 7 can also be perceived as 27, or the actual third count as 27 equals 9 times 3. It's all about perspective. Now, as the sequence continues, we can add the digits of our products to receive a sum of 9 as each count in the third cycle until we reach 9 times 30 equals 270, the end of the third cycle. The fourth dimensional mathematical patterns of 9 are able to occur due to 9's interconnection of 11 and its cycle. 9 times 11 equals 99, and this is as close as a whole number can be to the vastly important 100, which is significant because it is the first cycle of cycles, meaning 10 times 10. 99 is as close as we can get without overlapping or crossing this milestone of 10 times 10. Let's look at decimal forms of fractions where 11 is our denominator. So we can see each fraction is aligned with 9's multiple cycles, albeit in a repeating decimal infinite manner. The thing is that according to the pattern of these decimals, 11 divided by 11 should equal 0.999999 forever, but as we know, it equals 1. This is because as far as fourth dimensional mathematics is concerned, 0.999999 and 1 are equal. They technically have not overlapped yet, but through math's perception they can be perceived as if they are overlapped already. Let's look at 3 and its multiple cycle to reveal more illusions that are fourth dimensional patterns. As we look at 3's multiple cycles, we can see that every 3 counts leaves us with a pattern of 369 as we add the digits until we reach 3 times 10 equals 30. We are now at the end of the cycle, so there's a fourth dimensional overlap present. This overlap occurs by viewing 30 not just as a completed cycle of 3, but as the first count of our fourth dimensional triplet pattern, meaning 3. But the overlap in 3's multiples pattern shifts the fourth dimensional triplet pattern so that it is now 4 long as we cross the cycle. We can clearly see this as now all of our digits add to triplet counts of 6, 9, 12 with 3 absent until we reach 3 times 20 equals 60. We have now completed the second cycle of 3, and this time 6 is overlapped and acts as a fourth dimensional count as it fades. From there the triplets form 9, 12, 15 by adding the digits until 9 times 30 equals 90. Now the 9 is overlapped at the end of the third cycle, so our sequence of triplets just give us 12, 15, 18 when added. But now we are about to cross 100. And as we do to reach 102, 105, and then 108, our fourth dimensional triplets revert back to their original formation and continue the larger cycle of shifting triplet patterns. These fourth dimensional patterns of cyclical higher dimensional overlap continue in both 3 and 9's multiples, and the patterns become more intricate and more overlapped as these sequences progress due to higher numbers having higher probability of many overlapping cycles of various multiples. In fact, every single whole number imaginable has a fourth dimensional perspective of bending the laws of arithmetic to cycle back to the center, the source, the original number, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. This is only cycle 2, and I can't give away all of my secrets just yet. Besides, our infantile eyes are gazing upon the light that is higher dimensional mathematics for the first time, and before they can adjust, we first need more perspective. I mean, how are we ever supposed to wrap our heads around infinite possibilities? We are trying to decipher the language of the multiverse, and the multiverse is infinite possibilities. The fourth dimensional cyclical form of math leaves us with the conundrums such as 1/3 equals 0.333333 forever. The math is implying that these digits go on forever with no outlet to reach the whole number they are eternally reaching out towards. 1/3 times 3 equals 1, but the perspective of 0.999999 is also logically imaginable. This decimal makes me sad because the 9s just keep stretching out, ever hopeful of reaching 1, and always getting closer and closer, yet still never able to accomplish their journey. The lower dimensional linear form of math gives us this repeating decimal, no outlet, but the higher dimensional cyclical form creates a possible perspective of an overlap, or mathematical path of least resistance to contend that this decimal is close enough to equal 1. Linear lower math says that this is impossible, and this may just be my perspective, but nothing is impossible, and even the infinite can be contained by a perception of comprehending that the idea of infinity is an illusion. That's right, I said it. But again, I am only spreading the message that fourth dimensional mathematics shared with me, because there is a logical fourth dimensionally mathematical manner to which to dispel the illusion within infinite decimals. But in order to do so, we need to first look at the decimal pattern of 1/7. As we look at this fraction morph into its decimal form, we originally used the denominator of 7. So let's think of 7 like our fourth dimensional anchor as 3 and 9 were in their multiple cycles. We can then begin with 7 to create the equation 7 times 2 equals 14, the first 2 decimals. From there, we can continue this pattern 14 times 2 equals 28, the following decimals. If this pattern were to continue, the next sequence should be 28 times 2 equals 56, but our last 2 digits were 57. A different sort of fourth dimensional overlap is occurring, which we can reveal by using the actual digits of 57 to equate 57 times 2 equals 14. The pattern of doubling has shifted in order to sustain the cycle. There's even more evidence of this shift in the decimals as 42 times 2 equals 84, yet the following digits are 85, which is only 1 too many as 57 was to fit the original pattern. This decimal form uses a fourth dimensional overlap of the equation 57 times 2 equals 114 by separating the 1 in the hundredths place of 114 and then adding its 56 in order to sustain the cycle. This manner of shift overlaps a certain theory proposed by a certain mathematical genius we all know well, the one and only Albert Einstein and the theory of relativity. Relativity is balance, 1 equals 1. If the balance is altered, then the shift of one side is equal yet opposite to the shift on the other side. The decimal form of 1/7 uses fourth-dimensional mathematical relativity to shift its pattern to sustain. And well, we must be approaching zero because Cycle 2 is coming to a close. Our themes were linear and cyclical forms within arithmetic, fourth-dimensional law-bending patterns, and the separate but equal blends of overlapping cycles. We are still only just beginning, so stay tuned for Cycle 3, So Says 7, where I shall begin to give perspective on how to use fourth-dimensional math to shatter illusions of infinity. Check me out on any of my social medias and do not be afraid to reach out, please. I would love to hear your perspectives. The message must be spread, so if you like the message, spread the message. Nature is calling out to us. Are you listening? Thanks again for tuning in, and this has been Math Magic.